Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. I'm excited to have a little bit unusual Monday morning edition. Got Mr. Matt Llewellyn here. He's a new father, and he managed to carve out some time for me. So really appreciative. I will be a new father probably in the next few weeks here as well. Or not new father, but repeat new father in the next few weeks here. So I know how that goes. The first few months can be really a lot, not much sleep and a lot of work and worry and everything. And so I hope everything's going well. And thanks for coming to join me today. I appreciate it, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. You know how it is with a newborn. Not a lot of sleep. Lots of late nights, early mornings, and all that stuff. But I'm happy to join you here today. We got a lot to talk about, my man.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, we were talking backstage, and I was telling Matt, we've gone at it a little bit on the timeline on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it these days, the mean streets of the timeline. And so, when Fernando promoted the show today, I was saying could get spicy or should get spicy, and so I'm expecting that, and that's fine. And just for people, in the audience as well, like. That's what we want here. If we agreed on everything, it would be boring. So as long as we're like civil with each other, it's not personal. We're just doing sports takes and nothing to get upset about. Also, we are broadcasting to different channels. So if you're on TED Talks Ball, make sure you get over to 49ers Hive and like and subscribe. Make sure you follow Matt at Mr. Matt BSN on Twitter, X. And if you guys are watching on a browser, you can open up two tabs on your browser and watch both shows at the same time. That way we both get the likes or the watch hours. And also, if you're on a phone where you can't split it, you could always use a tablet or a second device to watch both shows at once. So thanks in advance for that. We really appreciate it. And then I'll try and show all the chats, even if I don't respond to every single one. I'm trying to show them all so that people don't feel like they're missing out if they're in one channel or the other. So speaking of Fernando's throwback in the house. He got here a few minutes early at 8:58. Welcome, Fernando, and thanks for all your help promoting me and all the other content creators. He's a really great supporter of all the content creators here on YouTube. And then Carcast is here, and Carcast has his own YouTube channel, so everybody make sure you give him like and subscribe, check his action out. So Matt, lots going on in 49er land. Obviously we can talk about whatever we want to start. Usually I try and do like some icebreakers till people get here to make sure we don't have to repeat ourselves about the really important stuff. But I guess, should we start off with talking a little bit about Nick Bosa and his contract or lack thereof?
Yeah, I've been very clear about my desire for them to just give him what he wants at this point. It's too late in the process, and I think that's going to affect the team, beginning of the season. No matter what they do now, I don't think that he's going to be available for anything more than limited pass rushing snaps against Pittsburgh, if he even plays. And you're talking about now you're increasing the risk of injury because you're not building up those calluses that you would in training camp in a controlled environment. You're asking him with limited practice each week to go out there and then play in a full-fledged game, and that's how injuries happen. I just think that when the team talks about having put aside Nick Bosa's contract money, they've done it for 2 or 3 years now. They've been saying this, and now it's this late in the process. That to me is a bigger failure than, I'm sure we'll get into the quarterbacks. That to me is a bigger failure than what was with Trey Lance, to be honest, because this guy is somebody who is absolutely proven, and they've gone out of their way to pay guys like Jimmy Garoppolo after 5 games. They go out of their way to pay a D Ford, who is still the 6th highest cap hit on the team this season. And then the guy who has year in, year out, 1 rookie of the year, right? Had an injury, but if you look at the mechanism of injury, his leg was planted and a 300-pound man pushed him over. Anybody's knee is going to get torn from that. But then came back, probably should have won comeback player of the year, but it just so happened to coincide with the season that Joe Burrow had to come back from. So Joe Burrow ends up winning it. And then you have, the defensive player of the year season. So at what point has he not proven that he's worth this? And we all talk about the Parag magic and, he makes team-friendly deals. The Bosas don't play. The Bosas want their money, and he absolutely deserves it. So it's time to just cut the check, stuff your pride down. You can find the money from somewhere else, right? D Ford is going to come off the books next year. No new money for this year. He's on his 5th-year deal. It's fully guaranteed at 17 point whatever million it is, 17.9. And the new money begins next year, or you convert it into a signing bonus. There are ways that each team plays with the cap to be able to get people under, and be able to make it work. Kyle Juszczyk probably not going to be here next year. There are restructures that you can do from other guys. Just pay Nick Bosa. That's it. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a Super Bowl contending team without him. There's no doubt about that. And I mean, not only is there no new money this year, but you actually probably save $8, $9, $10 million off the cap hit this year, depending on the size of that bonus and how many years it's prorated over. But definitely appears to be like we should save quite a bit off that $17.5 million cap hit this season. It's a frustrating situation. Do you have a drop dead number though? Like where if Bosa says I want X, you're just like, that's too much. I mean, I think 40 is a pretty easy number to say, like, you can't afford to pay an edge 40 when
40. Yeah, that'd be about where I'm at too. I mean,
okay.
I think it's reasonable to give him 35.
Yeah.
Just, I mean,
I'm hoping for 33, but
I'm not surprised. He wants to be Aaron Donald. But when you look around the league and you see somebody like Jared Goff makes 33 and a half, Daniel Jones makes 40, you can't tell me that these guys are more valuable than Nick Bosa has been production-wise. Right, quarterback's a premium position or whatever, but, the market's going to get reset anyway, whether it's Nick Bosa. And here's the thing, people say, oh, this is a drop dead number, or, oh, he's asking for too much, and the team's got to stand up and set the market. If the 49ers don't want to pay Nick Bosa, there's 31 other teams that will. Believe me, there are other teams that will. And whether Nick Bosa signs, the highest guaranteed deal or whatever the case may be, whatever his contract comes down the pipe, in a year or two, Micah Parsons is going to surpass it anyway. Like, that's just how this goes. That's how this goes.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, I would even say Chris Jones, but it sounds like he's willing to take less than Aaron Donald money, which kind of surprised me. I thought he would be a little more than Aaron Donald because
I think it's an older vet. I think he understands what it is. I mean, we're talking about Chris Jones. I think he's in his late 20s, early 30s. So he's in a different spot. Nick Bosa's 25 years old. I mean, you can give him a 5-year deal, and by the time the 5-year deal is up, he still won't even be, 31 years old yet. There's no reason not to. And I know Grant has been the king of crazy takes, but he even had he replied to somebody's tweet about them saying Nick Bosa was 25 or whatever. And he was like, well, how's his body going to hold up? And I'm like, that is such a ridiculous thing. I've always said, if you are planning your team building around the expectation of injury, you're doing it wrong. You should not expect all of your players to get hurt. What happened to the 49ers last year in the NFC Championship game is an extreme outlier and probably won't happen again in our lifetime. But everybody with the recency of it will want to plan for that. Oh God, we need to keep, early on in the process, they were like, well, maybe the 49ers should just keep all 4 quarterbacks. You never know. It's just like,
no.
Okay, that's not these guys. Sam Darnold should not see the field this year. That's the whole point, right? And a lot of times these guys don't, or if they do, it's for like a series. You know what I mean? And so it's a mistake to just assume that somebody with no evidence to the contrary, right? This isn't a Carlos Correa situation. This is a Baseball Reference, guys, for a guy that had a surgery with hardware that didn't look like it had healed 100% properly, and therefore he fails a physical. Nick Bosa is, I mean, I feel like even if he only had one leg, he could pass a physical. That dude is in tremendous shape. I don't think you have to worry about his body or whatever. So kind of ridiculous that they haven't gotten him in there yet. But I think I agree with you that 40 is like a strong, like, okay, we can't do what we did with George Kittle and reset the tight end market by 50% above what the going rate was. I think they just need to make him the highest paid defensive player in the league, and highest paid non-quarterback, I think, is what he's looking for. That's fine with me. 35, let's get it done.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping for 32, 33, but I could see 35. Up above 35, I start to squirm. Definitely in 40, I'm like, hard no at that point. But yeah, no, it makes sense. And yeah, I hope we never see Sam Darnold. I've been pretty vocal about saying that I didn't think he was our second best QB. That I didn't think there was a real competition between him and Trey Lance. I can kind of understand it. And I'm kind of like, hey, if Kyle gets it right, if we win a Super Bowl, then I'm like, okay, fine, you did it right, Kyle. But that's really what it's going to take for me to apologize to Kyle.
Do you not think that expectation's a little unrealistic, though?
Look at the amount. Not if we made the NFC Championship 3 out of 4 years, and the only reason we didn't.
But sometimes you have to have the luck too. You have to have the luck, right? Well, Kansas City on their run last year, Patrick Mahomes in the AFC wild card suffers a high ankle sprain against the Jaguars that limited him throughout the playoffs. But somehow they still make it because it wasn't bad enough, like a lot of other positions, high ankle sprains, that it limited him from being able to play. You look at a situation like Philadelphia beating the Patriots, right? Nick Foles is your quarterback, but on that day, magic happens and Bill Belichick's defense just doesn't show up or whatever. 28-3, that comeback. Does that comeback happen without that ridiculous Julian Edelman catch, right? 2007, undefeated 16-0 Patriots, washing the league. Brady, 50 touchdown passes, never seen it before. David Tyree helmet catch. So you never know. I mean, and if Brock Purdy is playing up to what we think that he can play up to or what Kyle thinks that he can play up to, if he plays to the level that he played at last year, which is what I think everybody wants, it's like the minimum expectation, right? Don't have severe regression. And what, we have a 49ers against Giants NFC Championship game where Kyle Williams fumbles punt returns twice, right? If that's the case and it's not Brock Purdy, then how is that still? How does Trey Lance come into that at all? How does the quarterback come into that at all? If the quarterback play is there and some unforeseen circumstance takes over, like there's only 6 active quarterbacks that have Super Bowl rings, only 9 active coaches. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. I just think that it's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation.
I would just say you should have had a bigger lead then. But no, I'm with you. The luck part is hard to overcome. It's important to have, but when we talk about injuries, I mean, I think going into an NFC Championship game with your number 3 quarterback and then having your 3 and 4 both get injured, that's unusual. But when we look at Kyle's tenure here in San Francisco, we're the most injured team since Kyle took over. So you can't really say that's just bad luck.
But you can't put that on Kyle either.
Well, it has something to do with his style of play, and then also the types of players that we select that are injury prone, plus the training staff, all the stuff. It's all under his regime. So I do kind of blame Kyle.
Kyle's job is to put together a game plan and get players out there and play. Kyle's not in the strength and conditioning room. Kyle has a hand in putting together the roster, but I think we let John Lynch get off scot-free for a lot of these decisions. John Lynch never gets mentioned for shit. In terms of sorry if I don't mean to cuss on your show. I
try not to, but if it slips out, I'd rather have the real you than trying to worry about that. For sure.
John Lynch gets away with a lot, and I think it's because people like John Lynch and he's very personable. But some of these decisions have been John Lynch, right? Jimmy Garoppolo was specifically pitched to John Lynch from Bill Belichick. That was the call, and that from John Lynch's own mouth. Bill Belichick called me, didn't call Kyle. Called John, right? And then John floated in front of Kyle. The way that he reacted, John Lynch reacted to Trey Lance not working out, super emotional, right? Kyle more businesslike. Tells me that was probably more a John Lynch pick than a Kyle pick. And there is some overlap there. I'm sure Kyle has a hand in a lot of the personnel decisions, but it's not just him doing it, right? And I don't think that you can blame. One of the biggest critiques of Levi Stadium right off rip is the fact that the grass it's slippery. It doesn't really, whatever. That's not on Kyle. That's a team thing. That's a Jed York thing. That's under his purview to get the turf in there and get the grounds crew up to snuff or whatever. The 2020 season where Jimmy gets injured, where, Solomon Thomas gets injured, where Nick Bosa gets injured, that's on the road at a place that's notorious for having bad turf. How is that on Kyle? Right. So there are things that, you can say this is one of the most injured teams for sure, but that doesn't necessarily fall to the head coach. That a lot of that, again, comes down to bad luck. Losing 3 of your starters in one game, week 2 against the Giants, the Jets, and actually 4 because the first play of the game after Raheem Mostert took it yard, he was injured. Right. So
MCL. Yep. Yeah. Mostert,
again,
MCL.
Right. Elijah Mitchell tore both of his meniscuses last year, or his MCLs last year, 2 MCL sprains or whatever.
Right.
Like, what are the odds of that? You know, so a lot of luck comes into it when you play 4 quarterbacks, and you know you're so down on quarterback that you have to have the one who tore his UCL go back in there and just hand the ball off because the other guy's out. It's just unheard of. I just don't know that you can lay that all at Kyle's feet. And the fact of the matter is, even if you lay all that at his feet, and you still look at the fact that he's made 3 NFC Championship games in 4 years, I mean, I still maintain we would have won that Super Bowl against Kansas City had the Chiefs defender been flagged for that helmet to helmet on Jimmy Garoppolo. That probably concussed him because Jimmy Garoppolo's accuracy fell off a cliff after that play.
Ben Neiman.
So, again, a lot of it is circumstance.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a few ways the Super Bowl could have swung differently. The Bosa hold that was uncalled on the 3rd and 15 jet chip wasp, the Neiman helmet to helmet on Jimmy G that was uncalled. Some of it wasn't refs, some of it was missed throws and bad play calling. Probably should have been more runs, but nonetheless, I still think QB has held the 49ers back. Maybe O-line too, with the lack of pass blocking. We focus so heavily on run blocking. That's definitely held us back and led to some more of these injuries as well too. It does seem like our O-line is shifting a little bit though. I've been noticing that Brendel, for instance, is a pretty solid pass blocker and not a very great run blocker. McKivitz, what we're expecting from him is that he'll be a better pass blocker than McGlinchey, but not as good of a run blocker. And then we held on to Matt Pryor, who is a pretty proficient pass blocker, but clearly not a fit for the outside zone run scheme.
I think he's busted. That's my bigger worry than quarterback this year. I think the O-line got worse from last year.
Absolutely.
And I think that the cornerback room got worse from last year. To me, overall, this 49ers team is not as good as the one we had last year. That's just it's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, we got weaker at kicker, obviously. We got weaker on the offensive line. We got weaker in the cornerback room. Jair Brown is like, if he turns out to be something, that's great. But at the same time, I think Tashaun Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga could have held it down with George Odom long enough that we could have just signed a depth guy and used that pick on a corner or something of need. I feel really, really uneasy about Colt McKivitz being the starting right tackle. I think that's a lot to ask. And if something happens to Trent Williams, this team is screwed, man. I mean, it's going to be bad. I think the weapons are going to do a good job of getting the ball out of Brock Purdy's hands pretty quick. But again, this goes back into what I'm saying about it's really hard to win Super Bowls, and the window oscillates from year to year. This could be a year where the 49ers are kind of like trying to get through their cap woes, pay Nick Bosa, and then come out the other side with another cap increase with, having their first round pick again this year or whatever, where they can retool and make a run or whatever. But, I know the goal is always Super Bowl, and that's always what I expect too. But at the same time, when you have classic franchises like the Patriots, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, sometimes it's not realistic to expect Super Bowl every year. But what you want to do is be in the mix. And that way, when the ball rolls your way, when that coin flip goes your way, when luck is on your side, that's when you get that Super Bowl run. We've seen it from wildcard teams. Joe Flacco is elite, right? Beating really good quarterbacks to get there. We've seen what happens with good luck. The Patriots, a lot of their Super Bowl wins are luck. Why did the Seattle Seahawks not run the ball? Why did they throw the slant that got intercepted at the goal line? There are just 1 or 2 plays can make or break your season. 1 or 2 instances can make or break your season. But if you're in the mix every single year and you're a consistently good franchise, which take out the first 2 years when the 49ers had one of the worst rosters in football, right? 3 out of 4 years, barring an injury 2020, the 49ers have been right in the mix and one of the best teams in the league. I don't think we can ask for much more than that. We can want more for sure. And I'm with you. I want the 49ers to win a Super Bowl every year. But I'd rather be the playoff contender each and every year rather than, the Rams paid for 1 Super Bowl and now they're going to be dog shit for 5 years.
I don't know. That ring's starting to look pretty good, man. I'm starting to be ready for the all-in move, but it doesn't seem like it's happening this year. And maybe we'll see by the trade deadline. That would be when we would really know. I would love to get our Von Miller, and a right tackle, and go all in for it, and just say,
And those are trade deadline moves, right?
Because we think 2 to 3 years with this core, but you just never know.
You never know. But a team with a player that is got paid or whatever, there could be a team that's like, okay, we need to get rid of this guy. We're not doing anything. This veteran's costing too much money or whatever. We see it every year. Again, like you said, Von Miller went to the Bills, mid-season. It's not like it happened right away. So there's avenues for them to pursue that. There's already rumors about that.
The Rams mid-season.
If the Rams are bad, that they could get rid of Aaron Donald at the trade deadline or whatever. So
yeah, I definitely see that happening, especially if Cooper Kupp doesn't play. I think Stafford and Donald will both bow out if Cooper Kupp his hammy doesn't get a little better. Tommy Huxley in the house. Also, real quick one to call out Tony from the Locker Room Rant. Eagles Uncensored in the house. He wants us to stomp the Giants. I think they're a little too cocky. The Giants look like they got a lot better. But the first one to go back to with E-Man coming to us, and he was saying that Bosa should learn from Buckner. Buckner got his contract, but at what cost? One of the weakest teams in the NFL. Money is important, but winning too. Yeah, I think that's sort of why the Niners are, digging their heels in. Is they're like, yeah, you can go get that 35 mil or whatever his number is from some other team, but if you want to play for the Niners, you should be willing to take at least a little bit less. Because and part of the reason we're contenders is because of Bosa, so it is a chicken and the egg type of thing. But he's not the only great player on this team. Obviously, we have Trent Williams, we have Kittle, we have Debo, we have Juice, we have Fred, and the next tier, the sort of Ayuk, Dre, Talanoa Hufanga tier.
But look at the guys that you said: Kittle, Debo, Juice, Fred. All those guys got paid.
Yeah.
And then what did you replace Buckner with? Javon Kinlaw, who can't stay on the field and who hasn't been effective on the field. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Bosa knows he has all the leverage.
Yeah.
All the leverage. And all due respect to DeForest Buckner, who's a hell of a player, he's not Nick Bosa. There's levels to this game. And you can't compare a primary defensive tackle to an edge rusher. It just doesn't work that way, right? Like even at Aaron Donald, I think Aaron Donald's severely overpaid for what his production is. Right. It's just different. It's different. And Aaron Donald, you can make an argument because he does get double-digit sacks. DeForest Buckner, very, very good player, not Nick Bosa.
And it's probably a good time to remind everybody, if you're on my channel, make sure you pop over to 49ers Hive, give a like and subscribe. Same thing if you're on the Hive, pop over to TED Talks Ball, like and subscribe. If you're on a browser, open up 2 tabs. Also, I set up my Venmo account today. It's my same as my YouTube handle and Twitter handle at TedH6. If anybody wants to make donations, that would be much appreciated. Let's see here. But yeah, if you're on a phone, check it out on your tablet too. Get 2 devices going. It helps. Tommy was saying he thinks 11-6 at best or 10-7. And I'm kind of right there with Tommy. I started out at 13-4. And then I realized that we had the -20 rest days, which is the worst in the league. And there are 3 teams with +12. I know it's the Bears and the Jets and one other team are +12. So there are literally 32 more rest days in a 4.5-month season. And then, we have the most travel miles. We have 4 teams coming off byes that we play this year. And one of the toughest schedules on paper, I think I just saw our 5th toughest schedule on paper as of now, however they calculate that. You never really know till you play the games, but it's interesting stuff. And then, now the stuff with Bosa, and I think, not having Trey Lance as our backup, I think that hurts our QB room. Like you said, we never want to see Sam Darnold, but like if we were to see Trey Lance, I would have feel better about it, honestly, than seeing Sam Darnold as our backup. So yeah, I'm kind of with Tommy Huxley. I'm kind of like 11-6 as optimistic, or 10-7 as more of a pessimistic prediction for this season. Have you given much thought to it? I mean, and it could go down from there if Bosa doesn't play too, obviously.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of the NFC West, and I am not a believer in Geno Smith. I think that he overplayed the first half of the year and got some consideration for things that he didn't look like in the second half. I think he's Geno Smith. I think that the 49ers should be 5-1 or 6-0 in the division, and then you can go from there. And they do have tough opponents, right? They have a lot of playoff teams. They play the Vikings, they play the Bengals. They're playing the Eagles again. Jaguars are not an easy out anymore.
No,
there are tough games, but at the same time, the 49ers again made the NFC Championship game for a reason. They are a good team. Again, things have to roll your way. Nick Bosa has to get into the building, and you have to go from there. But people act like 11-6 is a bad record. It's not a bad record. It's not going to get you the number 1 seed, but at the same time, this is, again, you're talking about the 49ers and really who else in the NFC? Philly, okay, cool, but they play in a division with 2 other playoff teams, and I don't think that they're going to get. They had a lot of luck to be able to get 14 wins last year. A lot of luck to get that. The Giants are a good team. The Cowboys are a good team. They're going to kind of eat each other, and I expect them to take wins off of each other. You got Detroit, who is on the verge, but what do you really got there? And they're going to have an easier path because of the division. Aaron Rodgers leaving, and Chicago's bad. I mean, Chicago's just bad. I'm still not a believer in Justin Fields. I don't think that you can be that inaccurate throwing the football and ever be something in the NFL. But, Minnesota took a step back, I think. They jettisoned a lot of their defensive players. I'm more optimistic, but at the same time, I get why people would say 10-7, 11-6, because it's hard to win in the NFL. And I think that speaks to my whole, it can't just be Super Bowl or bust. As long as you're in the mix, one season you're going to have bad luck. The next season you might have great luck. And it all depends. I would feel better about Trey Lance. I know how you feel about Trey Lance. I just think that it speaks volumes that of all the teams they traded him to the Cowboys, and even the Cowboys are like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to work on a ton of stuff with him. He's like QB3 for sure.
There you go. Well, I mean, for me, it was like, well, let me just call out some folks that are here real quick, and while I gather my thoughts as well. But Tommy says Bosa will be signed by tomorrow. 49 ways in the house saying, where are the Bosa to New York Jets rumors coming from? I think everybody
of Robert Saleh being there. That's all that is.
Yeah, that would make sense. He also said this offseason feels like 2020. I don't know if I felt good in the 2020 offseason. I felt like we ran back our whole Super Bowl roster, other than we obviously traded away Buckner and we let Emmanuel Sanders walk to the Saints. And then obviously Person and Staley retired, but Person was no loss, and Staley we upgraded with Trent Williams. So I was feeling really bullish. 2019 I was feeling bullish, 2020 feeling bullish, 2021, 2022. So when I say that I'm not feeling as good for 2023, it's unusual. That's not my usual state of being rolling into a season for the last 4 going on 5 seasons for the 49ers. And a lot of it is, like I said, those rest days is a big thing. One of the ones was the Ravens, because they're +9 rest days. So they have 29 more rest days than us this season. And by the time we play them on Christmas Day, they'll have rested a lot of those days and we won't. And I think that could be one where I normally would have picked us to win, where I'm going to flip it and give that one to the Ravens. But, it may not be specifically that game, but that's sort of my thinking.
That depends, though, right? Because Lamar Jackson's been getting injured the last year. Last year he missed 6 games. The year before he missed a couple of games, and that style doesn't lend well to longevity. Look at Cam Newton. Look at some of the other guys that are like that.
Yeah. Mobile QBs don't tend to age well. And he's he's a running QB. Let's be honest.
Right. Exactly.
He's the extreme. He is the most
the luck thing. If injury trends hold up, I mean, what if he's injured at that point? Does that change?
Yeah.
They have Odell Beckham, who's had 3 ACL injuries. Right? Does he hold up? What does their wide receiving core look like from the outside? I think we just look at it on paper and be like, oh, well, the Ravens have traditionally been good. And so that's the expectation. And that's my exact argument for what the 49ers do, is other teams look at the 49ers and go, oh, the 49ers are good. You build that.
They also got Zay Flowers, and they already had Mark Andrews, and their defense looks pretty good. So yeah, I mean, we'll see on the Ravens.
Let me know.
It might not be that specific team, but I'm just saying in general, there's a lot of teams resting a lot more.
After his MVP season, I saw no growth out of Lamar Jackson as a passer. So I think he's going to age poorly as a quarterback, just like Michael Vick did. That's just my opinion.
There you go. Young Dick Dong in the house saying Brock Purdy versus the world.
He had another comment though.
Yeah.
Bosa.
Oh, he had no leverage.
Yeah. So he said Bosa has zero leverage. He has all the leverage because 31 other teams will pay him.
Yeah, I think so.
49ers have no high ground. If I'm telling you right now, if the 49ers screw up the Nick Bosa thing, you think the Trey Lance thing was bad, it's going to be shambles. This will be the worst offseason of this regime. And
although, what's the best way to get people like me not saying Super Bowl or bust? If there's no Bosa, you can't say that. So it could remove that whole expectation off Kyle.
But then that would flip me though, and I would stop defending Kyle and John and all those people, and I'm gonna be like, "That was a layup. How'd you screw that up?"
So you'd get the
quarterback to me is a crapshoot, right? Only 25% of first round quarterbacks work out. 25%. You're more likely to miss than you are to hit. So that to me is not the worst thing in the world, particularly given that the team was successful while they were missing those draft picks. So they still have a strong roster. They have their picks this year. They have a guy that they found last pick in the draft who, I know that you've called him mid before and all that stuff, but you're talking Mr. Irrelevant coming in and playing on par with an 8-year pro in Jimmy Garoppolo in his first NFL action. I think that's extremely impressive. And if you project him
mid,
pro,
I'm saying mid for a veteran. For a rookie, Purdy was incredible. So it was amazing, incredible, all the superlatives you want to use. But when I say mid for a vet, I think that's really high praise for a rookie. And he played, I think, a little better than Jimmy G. And so it's incredible that he was able to do that. But if you want to stack them up, I think there's at least 10 other QBs that could have done as well or better, than he did. That are.
I think you have to look at Brock Purdy as not a finished product, though.
Yeah, he's not.
And he developed and get better, right? Traditionally, right? People say year 2 in Kyle's system, the quarterbacks get better. So if he gets better, and I know he's coming off the arm injury, and that's something that bears watching. But I saw some throws that he made that weren't nothing throws. I know a lot of it, and I hate that people want to have it both ways. But people are like, oh, all he did was throw to wide receivers, and then they got like yards after catch. I'm like, well, yeah, they call them the Yak Bros. Why would you not put your best players in position to do what they do best, right?
Oh yeah.
But what he does is he gets the ball out on time and a position to where they can make a move very quickly in open space. And I think that's an undervalued thing because I've watched Jimmy Garoppolo and unfortunately Trey Lance bounce balls at the running back's feet, right? Where it's just like, okay, that could have been 10, 11, 12 yards if you just get the damn ball out to where it's supposed to be. And the one thing that I will say about Brock Purdy is he gets the ball out on rhythm, in time, and in a place where the guys can go. That's neither here nor there, but I just think that if you allow room for growth, that the quarterback position is not going to be as big an issue. But both
I do. But you got to remember when I said mid, I was talking about last season before the injury. Then he got injured, and then we've seen him. I went to all 9 days of open camp practices. He did not look the same. He threw a lot of picks, pick sixes, drop picks, sacks. In every deep ball he threw, I kid you not, Matt, every deep ball was short or long. So he completed some, but they were not good throws. Like the one to Kittle.
I mean,
he had to fall backwards. It should have been a walk-in TD.
Short or long, though, right?
But then you look at the preseason games, and then Purdy was nothing but dink and dunk in the preseason games, and he didn't throw a TD. Now, it was only 3 drives. I get it. And they all ended up inside the 10. That's great. And he ran one in, so that's great. But I'm just saying.
What happened on the other one?
There were no deep throws.
Jordan Mason fumble.
And the other one, he got sacked.
Ty Davis Price whiffed on a block.
Whiffed a block, but there was a play after that where he had Jennings and he didn't throw the TD and he tried to run it.
But you can't criticize him for in practice throwing a lot of picks and then in the game he's protecting the ball. You can't have it both ways. He's trying. That to me tells me he's trying stuff in practice and trying to figure out what the limitations are, if there's any, on how his arm is looking and stuff like that. He's working that stuff out.
I just think it's him. I think he threw a lot of picks at Iowa State, and I think he threw a lot of pickable balls last year that were dropped. And so we'll see. It's a big area for possible regression, and it's one of my concerns. Real quick, I want to call out Laura Cat in the house, saying good morning, happy Labor Day, go Niners. Let's catch up a little bit on the chats. We got a bunch here. Tommy's worried about Bosa not being in football shape. Matt mentioned that earlier, that he thinks if Bosa plays, he'll be limited on Sunday if he plays at all. And that would probably be smart. Observe natural evolution here. He says, I'm just here to remind every 49ers fan that Kyle Shanahan hasn't fixed the O-line. Yeah, I mean, you could say he didn't even try. We didn't draft any O-line. We didn't sign any O-linemen. Oh, well, we signed Feliciano, but, I mean, come on. And Pryor. But, you know.
I got to push back on your Brock Purdy threw a lot of interceptions in college. He didn't. He really did.
Okay.
He never hit double-digit interceptions in a college season.
We threw a lot last year in camp.
Sure.
Preseason.
Sure, but I mean, you're talking about an interception rate of less than 1% on his throws.
And the one thing I'll say in his defense for camp last year, like, I'm very fair about my criticism, is that our defense is a lot deeper than our O-line or weapons. So when you're playing with the third team as a quarterback, you're going up against a much better defense than the weapons and O-line you have to take them on as a QB. I felt like that hurt Lance this offseason. And Darnold too.
Yeah. But look at the nature of camp install too. The defense is going to be much less complex and easier to install than the offense, right? Kyle does trickle installs. So then when you're using these plays and trying to see how these plays going to do against a certain look, we don't know if they're trying to, foolproof the play in terms of, okay, we know this works against cover 3, but let's call cover 2 against it just to see what happens and then see if they can make a play. We don't know if this is the first or second time they've even run this play, in which case you don't know how it's going to go. And you got it. That's what practice is for. Practice is where you're supposed to make the mistakes so that it's tightened up for the game. I just think that it's real easy to just look at training camp numbers. And I know particularly in the last 4 years, training camp passing spreadsheets have become a thing. And I just don't think that paints an accurate picture. You know, we talk about, again, I can't believe I'm going to defend Jimmy Garoppolo, but there was a practice where he had like 5 straight interceptions. And like, that didn't happen in the games. Like that season, he was actually pretty efficient with what he was doing. So I think it's too easy to get caught up. Let's see what happens in the games. If he starts not taking care of the football in the game, then we have an argument. But if it's just practice, like I'll deflect you back to Allen Iverson. What we talk about, man, practice.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, practice isn't everything, but it's also not nothing. Is the way I look at it, and so it's a concern for me. Hopefully, he'll alleviate that this Sunday, and we'll never have to worry about it. And I can but I'm not going to ever say I was wrong about what I saw in camp. I saw what I saw, and it won't change that. I'm not saying improved, or he may have been, like you said, been working on something where he wasn't worried about interceptions. And
I just think that sitting in the
sacks and
it's hard.
Deep balls and
it's hard to get context from that.
Yeah,
because like I said, it's just, why wouldn't you try to? And I know Kyle is probably like this too. Like, I think my offense works against everything. So let's put this offensive play against the most ridiculous defense that should shut it down and see what happens. Because I think my play is better than that. And I could see him trying to foolproof his offensive plays that way. Because we know he's like, hey, this is full. You just got to get the ball there, and we've seen it. This is wide open against the defense. He knows what he's doing, calling plays. It's just, how is he getting there, and what's the process? And traditionally, I mean, and again, Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever, it seems like 49er players throw a lot of picks in practice, and I don't think that that's unique just to Brock Purdy. I think they've all kind of done it.
Oh no, not in camp. Trey Lance barely threw any. Darnold didn't throw any for the longest time. No, it was Purdy mostly in camp. But maybe Kyle's working on different things. I don't know exactly what he's working on. Just when you see a pattern like that over 9 different practices, then I started to worry a little bit. Real quick, just want to call out.
Volume is completely different, though. It's easy to not throw picks if you're throwing 6 passes in practice.
Sure, that's true. Although there were some days when Purdy wasn't there.
And who are you working against too? Is Purdy working against the 1s, and then Lance and Darnold are working against the 2s and 3s?
Well, most of Purdy's completions were against Ambry Thomas and AJ Parker, and Ambry was Thomas for most of camp. Like, a lot. I was saying basically Ambry and AJ were closer to off the team than first team. Now Ambry has since turned it around against the Raiders. He had 1 PBU in camp, and then turned it around against the Raiders. Now they're talking about maybe having him as a starter and kicking Lenore into nickel. But at the time, it was looking like Ambry might not make the team. All right, so we got Chrissy here, 187 or 1687. She says she might think Bosa might be traded. Got John Shoop in the house. Welcome, John. Says if you think Fields isn't accurate, then Trey has no chance. Tommy says Bosa won't be traded. We got Bobby Murphy here. He says if the Eagles kick your asses again in Week 13, are you guys going to whine about it again all year? Well, Bobby,
not if the team's healthy.
Yeah, I don't think you guys will
game.
kick our ass if Purdy's healthy. Yeah, but will he be healthy? I don't know. That's a question.
The 49ers were moving the ball ahead of Purdy getting injured. Y'all were going to get fucking dog walked.
There you go. Harry Poppins says that guy don't know football. Assume that's me. But thanks, Harry, for tuning in. Either way, appreciate it. Twin Empire in the house. Check out his channel. Says good morning, fellas. And then Tommy was saying, Matt, they're arguing about guaranteed money. Yeah, that's what the players and the team really care the most about usually.
Probably. But at the same time, then what? I don't understand. Just give them the money.
Got Whippersnapper in the house. Welcome, Whippersnapper. Who drafts really good QBs? Pittsburgh? I
don't think Kenny Pickett's really good.
I think he's very comparable to Purdy. I think they're very similar quarterbacks, honestly. I think you'll see Kenny do a lot better. Pause.
Dude, the Kenny baby hands Pickett, man. Just can't get around that.
No doubt. The bad thing about QB is they traded up, giving away 2 firsts and a third round, 2 firsts and a third, just swap the first pick. Kyle didn't need to do that risk on a developmental player. Yeah, it's one of the worst. It's the worst trade up in 49ers history and one of the worst in NFL history. Let's be honest.
Sure, but don't you want him taking the shot rather than playing it safe? Like we weren't getting it done with the piecemeal safe pick was Jimmy Garoppolo, right?
Yeah.
You get him for a 2. He gives you 5 good games. You give him the contract, and yeah, he gets injured sometimes, but he's like a steady hand. Don't you want them taking that shot?
Theoretically, yeah, I did want it at the time, but now, I'm like Micah and the 2 firsts.
That was the highest touted. People were talking about that as an all-time QB draft class, and it looks like realistically, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence is really good, and everybody else is going to be kind of stinky.
Observe Natural Evolution says year 3 QBs under Kyle regress. I had a tweet recently, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, that got a lot of traction where I said basically, we traded up, we used 3 first-round picks and a third for Lance. We got a 4th back. We used a 2nd to get Jimmy. We didn't get any picks back. I meant in a trade. We got, obviously, the comp 3rd back for him. And then same thing with CJ Beathard. We used a 3rd-round pick on him and didn't get a trade back on him. I think we got a conditional 7th or comp 7th for CJ. But essentially, I was just saying Kyle, the QB developer, who hasn't developed any QBs. And I think you can argue about those other comp picks or whatever, but no team was so worried about not getting one of our ex-QBs that they actually would part with picks to get them. So, I don't know.
I will say this. Technically speaking, Jimmy Garoppolo year 3 was 2019 in a Super Bowl year, so that doesn't really hold water.
Yeah, no, Jimmy was pretty good in 2019. I was loving him in 2019, as we all know. And 2020, I was like king of the Jimmy stands for a long time. I was fooled by QB wins. I'll be honest. That's why I push back on a lot of it now. I just say, if you want to make your QB wins argument for Purdy or anybody else, look at Matt Stafford. 12 years on the Lions, 0-3 in the playoffs, 1 year on a Rams super team, 4-0 on the playoff Super Bowl champ. Same QB. Come on, you can't argue the QB wins there. It's so obvious that the team has a huge.
It's not a thing.
It's not nothing. It's like practices in camp. It's not nothing. And it's not everything. It means something. QB wins. There's a reason they keep track of them, but it's not everything.
Yeah, QB wins is like pitcher wins. You can have a starting pitcher that does exactly what they're supposed to do, but if they don't get any run support, they're not going to. Same thing. You can have a quarterback who's. Matt Stafford put up hella numbers in Detroit, but their defense sucked. So if you're giving up more points, Matt Stafford can't go out there and play defense too.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what I was saying about Jimmy when they're saying, "Oh, Jimmy's going to get the Raiders to the playoffs." I'm like, not if he doesn't play defense. Tommy says Lance is a bum. I just say Lance is TBD. I still believe that you can't judge a quarterback after less than 5 starts.
I think that's a personal shot, and I don't think he's a bum. I just think that he is a bust for the 49ers.
Yeah,
and I hope that he does well. But I do think that it speaks volumes that the 49ers, their most hated traditional rival, will be like, yeah, you can have them. We're not worried about it. That to me, something in my mind, it triggers something in me where I'm just like, they wouldn't just do that. So, and I know we got grandma making a sandwich going to the butcher shop in Steve Young and telling the 49ers how to do things, but it's all good, man. It's like, okay, grandma, you know how to make a sandwich, but you can't make this sweet deli sandwich over here.
Nobody minded when Steve Young said that Brock Purdy had the force. You weren't complaining about him then, so come on.
But that,
because Young, all those guys, they switch up so much. It'd be one thing if they like took a line and they stuck with it like we do, or some of us do. I do. But if you're switching up what you say every other week, then who cares what you say? Honestly, I don't care when you change up. With the wind. 49 Ways says the Bosa slander. There's seen a lot of Bosa slander. This fan base can change on a dime. Well, as it drags on longer and longer, he starts to look greedy, and you start to wonder if he cares about fielding a winning team, because the more he takes, the less. It's a hard cap league. Every dollar you give to Bosa is a dollar you can't spend somewhere else. So it is a zero sum game.
I hate that though. The thing is, I hate that because he hasn't made any noise. He hasn't done the Deebo Samuel thing, liking things in a Cowboys jersey or whatever. He just goes about his business. Everybody knew the Bosas were like this. Everybody wanted him to get paid. And then all of a sudden, because it's taking too long, now you don't want him to get paid. And you're backing the billionaire owner over the player who puts his body on the line for non-guaranteed money. It's not a fully guaranteed contract. This is not MLB. It's not the NBA. And so you guys turn off. I've never gotten that. That's just like, hey, I want Disneyland to keep raising its ticket prices so I can't go. Like, why? You're just putting more money into the conglomeration's pocket. I don't understand that in any way, shape, or form.
Supply and demand, I suppose. But Ian Sharp in the house says the whole offense gets yak. Welcome, Ian.
Also, how does Trey Lance's cap work for next year? He's not on our books next year, right? He's for the cap.
No, the Cowboys took everything. Well, the signing bonus still. There's a cap hit from the signing bonus we paid him. There's dead cap that will still be there next year for Trey Lance.
Okay, but it's not.
I think we got like 9 of it back, or six or 9.
Okay, so and then D Ford comes off the books, and Brock Purdy makes like 3 cents. So why wouldn't you pay Bosa while the time's opportune? And again, you gave Kittle how much as a tight end? And you gave D Ford $85 million when he was injury prone, and he's still counting against our cap. And you just don't want to pay Nick Bosa, I don't understand. And then the fans are getting mad about it. I don't understand. You should be mad at Parag and John for not getting him in the building. It's plain and simple.
There you go. Dominator says Ted is a nitpicker. Some people call me technical Ted. Some people call me super petty Teddy. But, I'm a see something, say something kind of person. If I don't feel right, and I don't this season, I'm going to say it. And I hope they prove me wrong. Like I said, I'd rather be happy than right. And I am still a Niners fan. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm never going to be a Cowboys fan. But, for me, for Kyle to be out of my doghouse, Kyle is now in my doghouse. And for him to get out, he has to win a ring this year. Maybe there's some luck stuff, like Matt said, if something super lucky happens, if there's a helmet catch or something crazy happens and we lose, okay, fine. But we got to get to the Super Bowl, and it's got to be damn close. And it's got to be like some lucky reason why we lost. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, should have had a bigger lead. Should have got there. You can't win it unless you get there. And we haven't got there in a while.
Hey, man, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the play calling is there, and we've seen it, stuff is wide open, then at some point it's on the players. But I think in any event, it's not going to be the last time the regime went through a change and Jed York pulled the trigger. It's not going to be the same situation where Trent Baalke stays and Jim Harbaugh goes. It's going to be John Lynch is going to take the fall, and Kyle's going to stay. They'll probably promote Adam Peters. I already see it building because this is the first offseason where I've seen tangible friction in the building. And that was apparent surrounding the Trey Lance thing. If Nick Bosa doesn't get done, I just think it's going to be way worse.
Absolutely. 49 Ways says, Randy, no jackhammer cherry pick stats to try and compare him to Mahomes. And this is the thing. People call me a Purdy hater. I really like Brock Purdy. I'm not going to pump him up. But I do hate the people, the hyperbole around him where people compare him to Mahomes, to Montana, to Brady. I just don't see any of that. And I don't think we'll ever see that. I think he can improve a little. I don't think he's ever going to be a GOAT or elite. If you look at the elite QBs these days, they don't look like Joe Montana anymore. They're bigger, they're faster, they have bigger arms, there's a breeze every now and then, but it's pretty rare, and everything has to be just right for those type of folks. And we can win a Super Bowl if everything's just right. My thing is here's this, Matt. One reason why I thought we might need more than Purdy could give us, because I felt like we had enough to all right, Eagles, I think it was a 50-50 coin flip. If Purdy stays healthy, whoever's the ball last maybe wins that game. And I think we're slight dogs going into the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And I like that. That's fine. We had a chance to win both games for sure. But this season, we got, I don't think we'll be as healthy in the playoffs. And people go, well, healthy? We were missing Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, our first two QBs. But if Purdy stays healthy, we really don't miss those guys. I mean, you could argue who is our best QB in 2022. And so then it's just E-Man, and then Lenore played great. He was arguably better than Charvarius Ward in the playoffs. So you don't really miss E-Man. So we're basically 100% healthy other than backup QBs. And so I just don't see us being that healthy this year with all these rest days, travel, all this stuff. So that's my concern. That's why I thought we would need more. And I'm not saying Lance is more now, but I thought if he played the whole season, he could have been. But I'm going to try and not talk about Lance unless he's brought up, because he's obviously gone. He's a Cowboy now. And now I'm hoping he doesn't work out. Honestly, I don't want him to work out, because that just compounds this bad trade and makes it even worse if he turns into Charles Haley 2.0.
Yeah, for sure. I think anybody comparing Brock Purdy to Patrick Mahomes, those comparisons it's like when somebody comes out in basketball and they're like, oh, he's Jordan-esque. Remember that? Oh, he's Jordan-esque. Like, stop it, man. Like, stop. Patrick Mahomes is a one of a kind, unique, generational, never going to see another Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's just so unique in what he does that you can't really compare him, right? And you don't need to. I think more fair was Willie Snead coming out and giving the Brees comparison from the angle of approach to practice and the game and film and the professionalism and working hard and things like that. That, I think, is a better comparison, because you can compare how somebody is in the building. Play on the field and physical attributes, you can kind of compare in certain ways, but there's an intangible to Mahomes that it's unique to Mahomes, right? And let's be real, Brock Purdy does not have Patrick Mahomes' arm. Patrick Mahomes has a laser beam attached to his arm. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. He can throw from multiple arm slots. He can throw across his body. He does things that make you cringe and you go, oh God, like, what? Oh, how did that work? But it does. It's unique to Mahomes. You can't compare Purdy to that. And I wouldn't want Purdy to try to do the things in this offense that Patrick Mahomes does. Some of the times when he runs around, I'm just like, oh God, like, don't do that. I don't. To me, get the ball out in rhythm, on time. That's what this offense is about, right? You're gonna have multiple reads. It's like perfect example is the preseason game this year where he hit that throw to Jennings at the second level. He had the guy underneath, but then he also saw that the second level was opening, and that's where the processing comes in, and you can make that extra throw. And that's what Kyle's offense is designed to do, is give you multiple windows to throw a ball to somebody, and somebody's always open. Just hit the open man. That's what they want out of their quarterback here, and that's all he has to be.
That's true. That's true. Why would anybody? Yeah. Purdy to Mahomes. It's because Purdy put up more points than Mahomes in those games. But I always just say, that
what a reductive argument, though, as if like points per. It's the same thing with QB wins, points per game. Yeah. There's a lot of things. The 49ers have so many explosive players, right?
They have way better weapons.
Right. It's just
we played a lot of banged up and bad defenses. And that's why you should never take such a small sample size, because you can end up with a sample that doesn't have a lot of great defenses. Or we played one good one, the Commanders, and they gave us the ball 4 times inside the 35. That means you're talking 12 to 28 points right off the bat.
Let's be real, though. The Chiefs play in a very light defensive division. None of those defenses are very good. So again, you play who you play, and the game is what the game is, and you take what's given to you. And so I can definitely, again, it comes down to the luck thing, right? Sometimes better to be lucky than good. Yeah, 4 turnovers that we got, that's fantastic. But it's still, you can't sniff at putting up 30 plus points per game as Mr. Irrelevant. You can't just scoff at that either. There's a little bit of both to that, just like there isn't anything. So if he can continue at a pace where the 49ers can put up 30 points per game, then we're good. and I think we'll have a good season.
There you go. Jim Everett the Great says Kenny Pickett was lights out in preseason. Randy said he'll
about training camp heroes there, brother.
Yeah, Randy says he'll throw 2 picks, 1 to Huff, 1 to Warner. Do we think Huff's going to play with that Baker cyst on his knee?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's Baker cyst is something that's can be indicative of overuse, but I mean, all you got to do is drain the cyst and it should be fine. It looks like they're going to try to work through it this season, so we'll see. But he should be out there. I haven't seen any news that he won't be out there.
Tommy Huxley says that Stetson Bennett is Leinart 2.0. Ouch. Maybe he should have stayed in school another year like Leinart did. He could be 27 now.
To be fair, Leinart was drafted 10th overall.
Yeah.
So Stetson Bennett was like what, a 4th round pick or something like that, 5th round pick?
Something like that.
Difference in expectation.
Ian says Lambs are tanking. I said they're going to run it back. They're going to get 5-12 again this year.
You know what? The team that's tanking is Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arizona's not going to play Kyler Murray this year. They cut Colt McCoy, right? They're I'm sure you've seen the clip going around where it's like Jonathan Gannon is giving a speech or whatever, and it's like, this dude couldn't motivate me to make a sandwich. And it's like he's like, how many of you drove here today? How many of you rode the bus? Do you have that fire in your gut? It's like, what are you talking about? And he's giving it
so flat. It was
so
just like
flat. Exactly.
You could hear crickets in the audience.
Yeah, it was really bad. I'm just like,
Grant had a great quote tweet. He said, it like makes me want to run through butcher paper. It's pretty good. Yeah, maybe even like tracing paper.
They're
tissue paper, whatever the thinnest thing is.
They have to be the front runner for being the worst team in football. They have to be.
Yeah.
With their absolutely ugly new uniforms, by the way, too.
No, that Sugarnaut says that Jimmy passed 7 times. Actually, Sugarnaut, it was 8 times in the NFC Championship game. But what some people don't realize is that the second half of the Vikings game, it was only 4 pass attempts there. So it was 12 times in the last 6 quarters rolling into the Super Bowl, only 2 pass attempts per quarter for Jimmy G. So when people tell you Jimmy G got us to the Super Bowl, you just tell them Jimmy G was there. He handed off nicely, but, to say that he got us there, he was on the team that got us there, and he helped, but it certainly wasn't on his arm, not through throwing a lot. That's for sure. But let's see here. Somebody said, do you think it's fair to compare Purdy to Mahomes?
No.
No.
Not fair to Brock.
It's not fair to,
and kind of insulting to Patrick Mahomes. Not that I don't think Brock can be a good quarterback, but they're completely different styles of players.
Yeah. Sean John says if Lance is TBD, then Brock is TBD, which you put him down at every turn. Just wait and see, not like anything else. All right. So, look, they're both TBD. But, I mean, Lance is not a bust, and you can't crown Purdy. I do think Purdy can improve, but I do think also that the defensive coordinators will figure out his tendencies and, game plan to attack his weaknesses and limit his strengths, which could, counterbalance any improvements that he makes. And I don't think there will be that big of improvements, but hopefully it proves me wrong. I'm rooting for him. Don't think because I say those things, I don't want them to happen. I just don't think it's likely. I think with a limited arm, limited height, and limited top speed, none of those are the most important things. No one is a deal breaker. Even all 3 is not necessarily a deal breaker. It just makes it very, very difficult to be great when you're limited in those.
I think he just has the one thing that you really need in this offense, and that's accuracy. And I think where my problem and some other people's problem come is when you say things like Brock Purdy is mid without context, or the fact that you'll talk about Brock Purdy in a way that seems like you're sliding him without actually giving him it. Because I come on here and you're just like, oh no, I like Brock Purdy, and it's like, well, when you say stuff, it doesn't come across that way. You know what I mean? It's just like when you're
because I'm talking to people that are spewing hyperbole. Compare them to Mahomes and Montana and Brady. And so it's like, that's the way the Twitter timeline is. You get these people at these polls. They force me to the other polls, but I'm really more, the truth is almost always somewhere in the middle. So that's why I like doing these shows, because you can find out my real in-depth feelings and not, 140 characters worth or whatever it is on X, Twitter. They're calling it.
For sure.
Deadshot Killer says Bosa is going to play with his brother on the Chargers. There was some talk about that. The sort of Herbert for Bosa, Purdy, and maybe a first or 2 firsts. I think that's crazy. I don't think the Chargers will ever trade Herbert.
Who dreamed that up?
Yeah.
Well, someone was in Madden trade screen going like, "Hey, can I make this work?"
Well, and people like Grant saying, instead of paying Bosa like a franchise QB, just trade him for a franchise QB. So
yeah, I mean, if you have a problem with Bosa getting $35 million a year, I hate to tell you, but Justin Herbert's going to make $52.5 million this year. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I know we were going to try and keep this to about an hour. We're about an hour and 2 minutes here, Matt. So. I want to be mindful of your time. Everybody make sure to.
I still got some time, man. I still got a little bit of time. We can keep going. Okay.
Well, if you're watching on either of our channels, make sure you pop over to the other one and like and subscribe. If you're on a browser, open up 2 browsers and get us viewing on both. I just want to make sure I call out everybody who's here now. I'm not going to maybe get to all of the tweets here or comments, but Silly Fungi in the house. He's a Rams fan, but he's pretty cool. He also hits us with a lot of funny dad jokes as well too, but this is the more serious one. He says the Rams paid AD when he sat out in 2017. I was scared for a Rams fan, but worth it in the end. I'm sure both would be worth it too. Hang in there. Thanks.
Agreed.
So, like I said, he's cool for a Rams fan. He's not so combative like Jim Everett the Great, but I like everybody as long as you're
honestly, I enjoy having Jim come in and just talk some stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. And then Ian Sharp says, yeah, McVay is 1-8. Yeah, they did. And they said, yeah, that won. So that's true. Fair enough. 49 Way says, thank you, Ted. I'm not sure. I guess I got one right here. So that's good. 5'10" Purdy. Can't take hits. He's 6'1.5". Come on.
There you go.
They list him as 6'1".
If that was me, I'd be like, I'm 6'1".
Yeah, they haven't listed him as 6'1", but it's not true, I don't think. What else? No one said Purdy was Pat Mahomes. No, they are saying it, Randy. That's the thing.
There are some, and it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't hate Purdy. I just hate the hyperbole.
I do too. I do too.
Twin says we have the number 1 defense. Well, we did, and we added Hargrave, so that's a really good thing. I was saying he could be Charles Haley 2.0, but in a good way, where he could end up being an Eagles killer for us.
Yeah, but I think Hargrave is going to make a huge difference if you can get Bosa back there, because I think that between Hargrave and Eric Armstead, and really the player that I think that's going to benefit the most with those other 3 is Drake Jackson. I would expect him to take a big jump this year. Very athletic, and if you can get something out of him, and he's keying in on his assignment better than he was last year, I think you can have something for sure.
There you go. We got Dion from Niner Gang Podcast in the house. Say morning, fellas. Everybody make sure you check out Dion's show. Great stuff. He said hope the baby's doing well, Matt. So
she's doing great. She's doing
wonderful. Great. And Mama, and hopefully Mama's doing well too. That's the key.
She's doing great too, for sure.
Postpartum is no joke.
No.
So for sure. Let's see here. Randy says something about content creators. Okay, we'll make sure all the content creators know that. Please do not compare Brock Purdy to the other elites again for 49 Ways. Yeah, I mean, I just think just give him some time. I mean, he there's no way you should ever expect any rookie to be Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes wasn't Pat Mahomes as a rookie. So, that's the best way to look at it. Hopefully he'll get there. To mid. And somebody was saying about the dink and dunk. I just want to be clear. I never called Purdy dink and dunk prior to the preseason games. When Ryan Hensley said it, I actually said, I wouldn't go as far as say dink and dunk, because he's really good in that 10 to 19 yard range. That 80% completion rate was incredible. I just said he had limited arm and maybe not great at deep throws, but that's not necessarily dink and dunk. I think dink and dunk is pejorative too. But in the preseason, that's all I saw was dink and dunk from him. So I had to be honest, and hopefully that's all we'll see of it from him. He could very easily flip right back. That's what we're all hoping for. So Ian Sharp saying, I think the 49ers are going to run the ball more than last season.
I don't know, man.
That's the way this old line
already one of the highest rates in the NFL.
I think they just want to build a wall and let and let Purdy play point guard with our best weapons group in the NFL with Debo, CMC, Kittle, Ayuk, Jennings, Juice. I mean, maybe Ronnie Bell now, Bell the Bull. He was looking pretty good in preseason.
Yeah.
What do you think about kick return? Were you bummed about Jameson and Ilm Manning?
Ilm Manning more so because I think that they need players on the offensive line, and Chris Forster seems to have a hard on for Nick Sakells for some reason, and I just don't see it out of him. Matt Pryor was pretty disappointing to me. I thought Ilm Manning showed enough that he would have stayed on the team, and I think it's telling that he got picked up off of waivers. Obviously, other team, Arizona saw something in him too. Deshaun Jameson, you'd be keeping him just for the special teams because to me, he looked like a liability in coverage. So if you're keeping him, what are you keeping him for? For the 8 weeks that Ray McLeod's going to miss, or the couple of weeks that Danny Gray is going to miss? Because to me, at this point, Danny Gray looks like he's only going to be a kick returner. Doesn't look like he fits this offense at all. So
not with Purdy as the QB. I mean, you can't have a deep threat without a deep threat QB, and Jimmy and Purdy are not deep threat QBs in my opinion. Sean John says you do not only push back on hyperbole, you push back on any positive talk about Brock. Like the nice interview he did when I said he's TBD and you went right back to mid. Well, he said something about winning, and I'm like, he didn't win at all. He didn't not only did not win the Super Bowl, we didn't get to the Super Bowl. And I know he got injured, but there were some warning signs about him playing recklessly in the past. And the NFC Championship game, everybody likes to talk about that drop that Ayuk had. But when you look at the replay that I posted a million times, the announcer's like, "Whoa, dude, be careful. We need you." And Brock's had a history of playing like this, taking hits that weren't necessarily necessary. And so, the one play where it happened where he actually got injured, yeah, I mean, he wasn't reckless in that play, but he, could have thrown with anticipation to Ayuk. He could have stepped up in the pocket, or he could have thrown the ball away. He didn't do any of those things. So maybe that sort of reckless mindset led him to stand in the pocket. I don't know. You can look at it however you want, but I'm not going to absolve him completely from getting injured and just say it was some fluke injury. The guy, he's not real big, and injuries are concerned. They're concerned for all of our QBs. Even when Lance was on the team, all 4 of our QBs, none of them had played a full NFL season. So same thing with the 3 we got left. It's a concern.
I do think that there is a little bit of I think you try to balance it too often in the other way, where it is kind of taken away from just sometimes the way you respond makes it feel like you don't like Purdy is the thing. And I think and that's fine. It is what it is. It's no big deal. But this is how people get that impression. But I just think it's ironic that for all the people that are like, oh, Purdy, he does too much, like blah, 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 are the same people that are drooling over that Caleb Williams play from the other day where he had a clean pocket for 6 seconds, didn't throw the ball, and then scrambled out mid play. It's just like, it drives me nuts too. I wish Purdy would get rid of the ball. I just think that when you look at the totality of the play, the throw was a hell of a throw at the end of the day. But yeah, I'd like to see that. And I'm not saying I defend Purdy, but really I'm about, wanting to win. And yeah, he didn't win it all last year, but Dan Marino didn't either. And you would never accuse Dan Marino of not being a great quarterback. Not comparing the two. I'm just saying, again, you can't just use wins when you want to, and then don't use it in another spot. It's ultimately the ultimate team game. And Brock Purdy was not the reason, minus the injury, which again wasn't on a scrambling play. It was on a botch where somebody was supposed to block Hassan Reddick and just didn't, and then got his elbow pinned back. I mean, that can happen to the best of them. It happened to Joe Montana in the 1990 NFC Championship game when Leonard Marshall came up behind him and just whacked him, completely messed up his elbow. I just think that it's too easy to get into the nitpicky stuff and get into the Twitter back and forth or the X back and forth, whatever it is.
I still call it Twitter.
I know. I still call it Twitter too. That was the most puzzling thing that Elon did with that platform. It was just like, why did you rename it? It's ubiquitous with the platform. Like, it's either way. It's too easy to get back into. You want to push back on the hyperbole. I get that, but then it's too easy to go completely in the opposite direction. It makes it seem like you're like dumping on the player, who by all accounts is a good kid, right? And I think it showed that Sky News interview showed awareness on his part. He's like, yeah, I'm not 6'6", and I'm not going to be like pushing the ball down the field all the time. He's like, but I find ways to win. That, to me, that's saying like I work with my limitations and I know that I can play. You know, it was the easiest way to not be cocky in that regard, right?
No, that makes sense. So they're laying into me a little bit here, saying not to be a dick, but I've been watching you guys for a while. You said some stuff that's been I mean, everybody says stuff that's wrong. The main thing is own it and move on and try not to repeat the same mistakes.
I don't even know what he's referring to here. If it's me,
I think he means me. I think he means me. He said something about they're wrong and you are right. Like I always, tend to try and get like that. Oh, like I'm not wrong very often, but when I am, I admit it, type of thing. And I tell people you can search where I said I was wrong or my bad or good point. Those are like signs that I was wrong about something. And then he said,
"Oh no, he's saying me. I think he's saying me. Oh, both.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but okay. He's saying I told him last year that because of Armstead's injury, he wouldn't come back. I'm just saying. I think in the moment, what I was saying was, if you're injured and you're not performing up to your contract, then they can move on from you, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But obviously, he's back, and again, this is all opinion. This is not. I'm not saying these things as if they're fact, because I will never pretend like I have an insight into the team. I'm just going based off of my thoughts, and so everybody has an opinion, and sometimes those opinions don't turn out, and that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, somebody said I lied when I said Lance would be QB1. I said that's a prediction, not a lie. Yeah. And I feel like Lance kind of got the shaft, but I don't want to get too much into that again.
Oh, he said, I'm making a point. You guys say things all the time that are wrong. Don't hate people for saying Brock is as good as Pat Mahomes, but he's not. They're not even the same player.
No. And if you think, and people say Mahomes dinks and dunks. Well, that's because they're playing too high safeties to take away the deep ball. They don't do that to Purdy. I guarantee you that. Exactly. They're daring Purdy to throw deep. It's the exact opposite. So they're playing one high robber, and they're just saying, please throw it deep. Whatever we do, don't throw to the yak guys underneath. So I think did you said your prediction was a little more optimistic than the 11-6.
I think 12-5 is reasonable. Yeah. I think I will say it's hard to put an exact number on it, but I think that the 49ers should be the overwhelming favorite to win the NFC West.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, obviously the Rams are no worries. Are not the Rams. The Cards are no worries. The Rams may be a little bit better. Seahawks, I think they're going to be improved. But I still don't know that they did enough to address their run defense woes. They got Bobby Wagner back, which will help. They got Jaron Reed back, but they lost like two big defensive tackles, an older one and one that wasn't necessarily really good. But I don't know. I just, like you said, I don't really believe in Geno Smith. So if we get Bosa back in a reasonable time frame, I think we should be able to easily separate ourselves from the Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, and if Bosa's not there, then I think that would cost them 2 or 3 wins, I think is a fair assessment. Yeah. Okay. No, don't do that. Randy Daytona, you can't use stats as the only metric for comparison. That's very reductive. You put them on the field and you watch them play and they're completely different players. You can't do it like that. It's just,
you got to have context behind the
Tell me you only watch NFL Red Zone without telling me you only watch NFL Red Zone.
Exactly. So what do you think about the rest of the NFC? Do you think it's Niners, Cowboys, Eagles at the top of the NFC?
Niners, Cowboys, Eagles. I think that the Detroit Lions are on the come up. I think they're doing a good job, but I think there's still questions for me regarding Jared Goff as your primary, guy. And then they lost Jamal Williams to the New Orleans Saints. And then they lost like 5 or 6 guys on that gambling thing. So who knows with them? But I think it's pretty safe bet that it's going to be the 49ers. I think the Cowboys are a mix. I'm also not completely sold on Jalen Hurts still. I need to see it for more than 1 year because I watched it. He got replaced at Alabama by Tua. He went to an offense in Oklahoma where Oklahoma just beat a team 73-0 yesterday or Saturday. That's just what they do. And he looked very, very limited, and he looked good last year with Philadelphia, but I need to see it for 1 more year. You know, I can't say I need to see more from Purdy like I do, or I need to see more from Lance like I did, and then look at Jalen Hurts and be like, oh yeah, no, I've seen enough. I need to see more from Jalen Hurts. It needs to be consistent. And then my dark horse has always been the New Orleans Saints.
I think that their defense
to that team, they still have talent. Oh, and Bryant Culp. Derek Carr, I think, doesn't get as much credit as he should for being a decent quarterback. He's not bad. He's not great, but he's not bad. So yeah,
Michael Thomas back supposedly. We'll see.
Yeah. So,
but they had Olave. They had that Juwan Johnson tight end.
Yeah, Olave's nice, dude. Olave's nice.
They have Kamara. They have Jamal.
And their defense is pretty good.
What's their running back's name?
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams, yeah, the TD vulture from the Lions last year.
Yeah.
Well, Saints, Lions.
The one that's in love with anime. It's super funny.
Right. And then they got that Kendre Miller or somebody like that. Kendre something or other that they like a lot, the rookie.
Yeah, so, I mean, I happen to think that Alvin Kamara is severely overrated, but you know, that's just me.
Well, I think maybe he's dropping off some, but I think there were times where he was pretty comparable to CMC.
He's suspended for the first little bit too, right?
First 3 games. I thought it would be a lot more for what he did, but yeah, everybody make sure you check out Bryant Culp. He's got a great YouTube channel, him and his wife, Tony. She does great women's shows every Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific. Check out the women's roundtables. And Bryant does a lot of good morning shows, including some open mic, shows for people who want to pop in, get your chance to be seen on YouTube. Great opportunity with Bryant. Oh boy. All right.
No, listen, it is allowed. I can sit here and say whatever I want, just like you can sit there and say whatever you want. I'm trying to help you because single factor analysis in any type of comparison, in any type of analysis, in any type of whatever is the lowest form of analysis that you can do. It's lazy. It's lazy to look at a stat sheet and go, Brock Purdy compares to Mahomes because of these stats without taking into account your opponent, your teammates, the type of offense that you run, and anything else. When you're comparing quarterbacks, you have to compare them for their physical traits. You can't just compare them based off of the numbers, right? Because
look at the weapons. Like Kittle is every bit as good as Kelce. I'm sorry, he is. If you put Kittle on the Chiefs, he would do everything Kelce did, plus block better and better yak. And then they're comparable at the very least. And then you got Debo's better than Juju. And then you got
Juju ain't even there anymore, but yeah,
but Juju last year,
yeah.
and Ayuk's better than any of their other receivers, Hardman or whoever they had, who's also not there anymore.
Christian McCaffrey, very much better than any running back they had on the roster.
Yeah, even Isaiah Pacheco, who was a great little story. And you got Juszczyk.
What's the gap? Is that Mahomes making up that gap with lesser weapons because of his talent? Is Purdy being carried a little bit more than he would be because of his? So you're just looking at a stat sheet going like, oh yeah, they're the same. They're not.
Casey had the better O-line. I'll give him that.
You can't compare two pitchers who have similar stats and be like they're the same pitcher when one is Greg Maddux and one is John Smoltz. They're completely different in the way they approach the game, and that's what we're talking about.
There you go.
Of course you can, as long as you tell people it's just the numbers. I've never said it's just the numbers.
Yeah. No, I mean, the first thing is the eye test, and then you go off stats, and then you go off things like PFF or, and watch the film. Watch the film, watch the games as they're being played. It's not the same to watch a game after you already know what happened. It's not the same. I can just tell you it's not. That's why everybody tries to watch them live, because there's something about not knowing that makes it very different than what you already know what happened.
Right. I mean, statistically, if you want to compare them just based off statistics, you can, but that's not the whole story, and that's purposefully reductive, and it's obfuscating what the real situation is. Because if you traded and put Brock Purdy in Kansas City, there may be a borderline playoff team. If you put Patrick Mahomes in this offense, the 49ers are going undefeated.
Yeah. We're dog walking fools all the way to the ring. To number 6. Robbie Knight in the house says Walsh created the West Coast offense for dink and dunk quarterbacks. Do you want a bomber? Then it's a Sid Gilman offense, not West Coast. Do you want to run this, or can I jump on
Go
this,
for it.
Matt? So first of all, we don't run the West Coast offense. Kyle has a largely West Coast offense with a lot of elements from Joe Gibbs's outside zone run scheme mixed in. Second of all, Walsh created the West Coast offense in the early 70s in Cincinnati, and then it really came popular with us and the Niners, not the Bengals, with Joe Montana and company. But then defenses have adjusted to it. So like the whole dink and dunk thing, that's why you've got all these fast, smaller linebackers now and better cover corners and, whatever you want to say, better defensive ends to get more pressure. The defenses have adjusted to it. So that's why you don't see any elite quarterbacks that look like Joe Montana now. So even if Purdy was Montana, I'm not saying that that's elite in this day and age anymore. In this era, the rules have changed. You can't hit quarterbacks high. You can't hit them low. You can't hit wide receivers going over the middle. It's all different. So whatever worked in the 80s doesn't necessarily work anymore. I think if you protected Joe back then, he wins 7 Super Bowls at least. But if you put Joe now, I don't know that he's elite, or at least not the GOAT. I don't think he would be, because you just look at who the top QBs are: Mahomes, Herbert, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. They're all bigger, stronger, bigger armed, faster type of guys. They're just better athletes. They're just more evolved.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, I'm done arguing with Randy Daytona. He's obviously has his own mind made up about stuff, but this offense is meant to get the ball to the open person. So, yeah, I don't know, Randy. I test you put Patrick Mahomes on a field with Brock Purdy, and you can tell which ones. You can look and see which one is the more physically gifted quarterback. Like, it's not even close, man. I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's all right. He's I think just arguing to argue, and that happens.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course. And it's an argument that can't be proven either way.
If Trey did what Purdy did, they would all be saying the next Mahomes. I mean, no.
Trey's more physically gifted than Brock Purdy is.
Yeah.
If Trey could do what Brock Purdy did and then also had all of his physical attributes, then hell yeah, he would be being compared to the next Mahomes.
Yeah.
Because it would be similar arm strength, similar mobility, right? And then if you have the accuracy of Brock, I mean, you're creating a unicorn quarterback, which is what Patrick Mahomes is. So of course.
Sean John says that's prisoner of the moment, Ted, suggesting Montana wouldn't be great in this era. I didn't say it. I just said he wouldn't be elite. I mean, I don't think he would. I mean, none of the elite QBs resemble Joe Montana anymore. They're bigger arm, faster.
I don't think I think different. From that day and age, I think Elway would be elite. I think that Marino would be elite. Like Marino in this offense would kill.
Because guess what, Sean John? He wouldn't have Jerry Rice. So
well, that too. And dude, there were so many games where Joe Montana threw like 3 picks.
Yeah.
Like, I think Warren Moon would be super good.
Yeah.
In today's game.
No, you can't blame the Super Bowl on one pass, but you can say that Jimmy missed more than one pass. He threw 2 interceptions. He didn't throw to kill several times when he was open, so it wasn't just one pass. And I don't blame it all on Jimmy G then anyway. Kyle gets some blame. The refs get some blame. The defense gets some blame.
Yep.
So, it's not all on Jimmy anyway.
He says just argue. That's right, because you guys are right definitively. No, but you're immediately dismissing our points of view. When we come back with actual rebuttals to you, you just go, nuh-uh. That's a child's argument, dude. Miss me.
He's saying, did Ted say Montana would be mid in today's game? That's wild. Don't put words in my mouth, Sean John.
I'll say pretty good. I'll say it. I think Joe Montana would be mid in today's game.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Matt went with it. I think he'd be mid plus, I think he'd be very good to very good, but
Now, if you took Joe Montana, the person, and transported him to grow up in today's era, I think he would be successful because he would get different training. He would be taught a different way to play the game. But if you took Joe Montana, the 49er, and pulled him out of the 80s and stuck him on this team, I think he'd be mid because he'd have bad habits. He wouldn't be able to do certain things. Defenses are more complex than what they were. Players are faster. It would turn into something that, salary cap. There was no salary cap when he played, but that's just my opinion. See, this what I'm talking about.
Purdy did play against the Chiefs. He threw an interception against the Chiefs in garbage time. But this is the thing. This is the nuh-uh argument. Can't tell because I haven't seen them play each other. Okay, but you've seen them play on the same Sunday. Yeah.
They've played common opponents.
That's true. That's true. Matt, how are we doing on time? We're coming up on an hour and a half here.
I'm still good. If you got one or two more topics and you want to start wrapping it up.
Cool. Let's just go with the chat here for a minute. Let's see what else we got here. Argues to argue. That's right, because you guys are right. Oh, okay, that was the one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, dude saying somebody wouldn't be elite, he wouldn't be great, bro. That's our opinion, and you have your opinion, and that's what the beauty of this all is. We can all express our opinions. It's just sports. There's no way to prove it. Let's be honest. So, at least with stuff like Lance, we will see if he's to be determined or not, right? Or if he is a bust. But with Joe Montana's never going to play now, or at least not the 25-year-old Joe Montana from the 80s. So
yeah, listen. Opinions are like anuses. We all have them, and most of the time they stink.
Jimmy G did better than Mahomes in the Super Bowl majority of the game. Yeah, because Jimmy G was playing against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and Mahomes was playing against the number 2 D in the league. So in 2019. So yeah, that's why. That's why it's tough. I mean, I'll give an example of that. I've thrown out a stat that Lance had a better passer rating than every quarterback he faced, and that's part of the reason why. Why is that Lance had a better defense than any of the quarterbacks he faced. So, yeah. Okay. All right.
Made my point. Everyone is entitled to opinion, but you're 100% right, dude. That's how you're acting as well.
I hate when people say you made my point when you didn't make their point.
Yeah, exactly. I got to bring this up. I'm sorry. I have to do this. This is something.
Do it. Let me have it.
That annoys me so much is when you respond to people and like you quote tweet yourself as if like that's some like definitive proof of what you're saying. That shit drives me up a wall, dude.
Well, sometimes it's just like they ask me the same question a bunch of different times, so I answer.
I know a lot of times you're just like, I don't want to retype it, so I'll just
yeah. And then some of it's like, oh, well, I trust our coaches. I'm like, well, here's our coaches. They passed on Mahomes. They passed on Brady. They didn't get Stafford. So like that, those are all just.
I don't blame them for passing on Mahomes. You can't get hired 2 weeks.
Hey, but I wanted Watson. Watson just won the Natty against Saban's Bama squad when they were the Georgia of the day, right? Because Bama isn't really Bama now.
I just think that it's hard to, again, tie yourself to a franchise quarterback when you got hired 2 weeks before the combine with no scouts in place, with a first-time GM, with the worst roster in football, because I don't think that any of those guys would have been. And he said, like, he had acknowledged that what he was trying to do was build the team and then get the quarterback. And I think it's hard to take a guy that you put all of it on their shoulders, and you see what happened. Like, I mean, how many times have Justin Fields been killed because the Bears are just like. You remember that one game where like he got hit so hard that his helmet like came off?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I just don't think it's when people say go back and go, oh, we should have taken Aaron Rodgers instead of Alex Smith. Like, would Aaron Rodgers in that circumstance have developed into Aaron Rodgers, or would he have been would Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes if he didn't have Andy Reid plus Alex Smith plus a playoff team to have a year to develop on? Would he be that without all those things? So again, it's circumstance, and hindsight is a very, very fickle mistress. It's very easy to look back and be like, oh yeah, if we would have done this, we would have had that, right? If we would have got this guy. If we didn't get Jimmy G, we might have gotten Kirk Cousins, who would have been the best quarterback out of all the quarterbacks that have played here. Kirk Cousins is better than Jimmy G. He's better than what we have. But then do we not get Nick Bosa, right? If Jimmy G doesn't tear his ACL, do we not get Nick Bosa?
Probably
if
not.
The Cardinals aren't worse than us and do the historic thing of getting rid of a pick that was top 10 the year before and draft another quarterback number 1 overall, do we not get Nick Bosa? Everything's a butterfly effect, and it's too hard to do that hindsight stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. And when they all happened, you can make the excuses for it. And, any given year, if you tell me we're going to make the NFC Championship, I'm fine with it. But as you look at both in a total, that's when you start to be like, oh, it is starting to get frustrating. Riley says, Montana not be elite in this era. I want to know what you're smoking. It's smoking that truth joint, Robbie. Smoking that truth joint.
It's just I grew up watching Montana. Too many mistakes, man. A lot of quarterbacks from that era, too many mistakes. Troy Aikman would be dog crap today.
Yeah, Troy Aikman was not good. He was not
terrible.
Good.
And he played with a lot of really good players. I mean, Alvin Harper and Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith,
Cosby,
and Johnston, and I mean, insane offensive line. And he still is, I mean,
Or
look,
Novacek, right?
his
Cosby was
numbers
earlier.
are trash. His numbers are trash.
Yeah, it was
But
Jay
just do
Novacek. Was a
mistakes.
great
It's a
center.
different day and age today.
Hammett, that the best O line, arguably in the history of the NFL, you could argue that Cowboys
Right.
O line. Dominator says so. Purdy can't be elite because he's small. No, Dominator. Purdy can be elite, but it'll be difficult because he's
I think Ted
vertically
said that
challenged.
it's not likely because how many small quarterbacks have been elite for their entire career? It's like Drew Brees, and that's it.
Well, and even Drew Brees and Russ Wilson won rings, but like Drew and Russ both won them before they got paid. And Russ had like the elite, LOB defense and prime beast mode when he did it, and then didn't make it to an NFC championship without those two things. So I don't know, is he elite or was he carried? I don't know. I mean, he was elite against us. He was elite against the Niners, but against the rest of the league, Russ wasn't that elite. So, Robbie says modern quarterbacks wouldn't survive in the 70s and 80s pass rushes. No, there's no doubt. Like Joe Montana got crushed. Oh, we got a cameo. Joe Montana got crushed lots of times after the play. We had a special visitor.
Yep. They're going on a walk, so.
Oh, nice. Well, if you, like I said, just pull the ripcord anytime you need to.
She's going through, you know how it is. Sometimes when they are about to hit a milestone, they get a little fussy and then they get sleepy and then, it's back and forth. So she likes to walk. So we're taking her out, getting her some sunshine.
I was just talking about Robbie Knight said modern quarterbacks would not survive the 70s and 80s pass rushes. It's not just the pass rushes. It was like the dirty hits. Like, 2 seconds after the play, they would pile drive Montana into the ground. No whistle, roughing the quarterback. It existed, but it didn't really exist. I'll just say.
Yeah, they got beat up pretty bad. So
had to be egregious to ever get a whistle for that or a flag. If Montana could play without fear of being crushed, he'd be elite for sure. No, if Montana did play without fear of being crushed.
Hey, I'll tell you this.
He got crushed on the regular.
I very well could be absolutely wrong on this, but you know what? We'll never know. That's the beauty of these type of things. It's like,
I see what he's saying. Sorry. He means now without the fear. Yeah. I mean, I can see that argument. I just think there will be more quarterbacks that resemble Montana now, elite quarterbacks, and I don't see that these days.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. Like I think if Michael Jordan played today, he'd average like 50 a game.
Sean John says, I must be happy that we didn't get Watson. Sort of. I mean, if you assume that the same things would have happened with the massage folks here in the Bay, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't happen.
I do only because if you're a pervert in Houston, you're going to be a pervert in San Francisco too.
Yeah, I think that's a fair
assessment. Massage Watson is nah, man. And it's sad because you don't want to see people, be like that, but that's some weird stuff, dude, and I'm not about that life.
No doubt about it. Dominator saying, but Mahomes was supposed to be elite, right? Drew Brees took apart the defense. Mahomes get the pass, even though KC O-line holding all game. So Mahomes is elite. He is one of the best ever already. I mean, that's just he just won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. He's I made that argument for a while. Like it's just the weapons. It's just Tyreek and Kelsey and all those great weapons, Sammy Watson. But
I don't know. I think Mahomes.
Watkins, sorry, not Watson.
I think Mahomes is the most elite quarterback I've seen in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, he's incredible.
From a physical standpoint, like nobody plays the position like him. Like the only comparison that I have, honestly, is not even the physical tools, but just I think Brady's mental approach was unmatched, unrivaled by anybody, and I think that he might. I mean, honestly, he's the smartest quarterback I've ever seen play. It's Tom Brady. Never seen anybody, dissect like that. But physically talented, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. I haven't seen a guy that physically talented in forever. I mean, he's got all the things that you want. He has mobility. He has all this other stuff. He's like Aaron Rodgers 2.0. He's like a better version of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so he's pretty incredible. No doubt about it. And East Coast Nerd says the Chiefs didn't play Mahomes like Kyle Shanahan played Trey. Well, that's partly because Jimmy got injured. The plan was not to play. Well, the plan was to play Trey sparingly. I don't think the plan was ever to have him start games, but he was forced to start because Jimmy strained his calf against the Seahawks. And then, when Jimmy first injured his thumb, Jimmy couldn't play against the Texans. So that forced, Lance to play versus the Texans and versus the Cards, essentially, and half a game, the second half against the Seahawks. I was there at Levi's that day. Let's see, Randy. Is Randy still ranting? Hey, just for the record, Ted and Zach, who isn't here, love you guys. Thanks, Randy. We appreciate that. Zach Hernandez is amazing. He was the first person to ever ask me if I wanted to write articles. So love me or hate me, you can thank Zach Hernandez for my rise. I probably never would have been here doing this if it wasn't for Zach saying, hey, Ted, would you like to write articles about the 49ers for 49ers Hive? So let's see here. Sean John said, I want to spin this. If Brock can work out, then we have the best situation in the whole league. No other starting QB in the league make us a little money to help us keep players like Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, I mean, if Purdy can, like I said, he was mid last year. If he can improve a little bit and be like above average or good, and on that, on that $900K salary, like, yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate situation. You don't have to be better than another player to be a better value. That was why, like, when the whole Bosa for Herbert stuff was coming up, and Rich Madrid tweeted out that, oh, Herbert's 1,000 times better than Purdy. I'm like, come on, he's not 1,000 times better, right? I mean, but then I said, the question is he 50 times better? Because he cost 50 times as much, or 52 times, 53 times, whatever that multiplier is, between 900K and 52 plus million that Herbert's making. And so that's the equation you always have to do in your head, is like, if they aren't better, are they a better value? And Purdy is definitely a way better value than Herbert, in my opinion. But if you could somehow swap them, I mean, no doubt you're taking Herbert all day and twice on Sunday, all week.
But just for a price to get, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. 50 times better, 50 times more worth the salary. Yeah, that's interesting question. I think it's very easy to see that Herbert's the better, like, quarterback. But
is it like 5 times, 3 times, 2 times?
Yeah.
It's not 10 times, right? And so it's definitely not 50 times.
Yeah, for sure.
So what you have to compare is, what would Purdy's contract be in the open market? And I think it'd be around 35 million, maybe somewhere in that range, kind of like the Geno, in between Jimmy and Geno. And so, yeah, so then you're maybe twice as good, That's sort of where I would put it. Sorry, I do assume only because he's never apologized.
Yeah, he's talking about Massage Watson.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Okay, yeah, that's a real good indicator. I was like, man, what did I need to apologize for? That's what happens when you get behind in these chats. Watson does not think. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you clarified there. Mahomes ran over the Eagles with one leg. Yeah, he played on that. Mahomes is incredible the way he plays injured. No doubt about it. His recovery from, he had that kneecap injury too, and never needed surgery and just missed a few games. What's your Pooch's name, Matt? Oh, I'll wait till you're.
This is Grace. She's a little pissy because they took our other big dog to walk with the baby. It's my wife and my mother-in-law, and I already walked her this morning for a long time, but she always wants to go on walks, so she's a little pissed off and scratching at the front door. So
there you go. Brent says, I think Watson went too far with the Texans. I don't forgive Watson. I believe there's tons of other things that haven't been exposed. I think the Texans tried to bury Watson. Interesting. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, when the lawyer was like buddies of the owner, he got an idea that there might be a little bit of a collusion going on there.
What a weird situation that was too, to watch unfold. I was like, dang, man.
There you go. Robbie says, love you guys. Go Niners. Thanks. Appreciate that, Robbie.
A lot of it, I think, was the names of the attorneys. You remember? Like, the names of the attorneys were like really sketchy names.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Yeah, it's interesting. No doubt. Well, I think we've kind of covered most of what we needed to. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
let's do a little quick.
talk a little more about the cut downs and practice squad, any of that stuff.
Yeah,
We
we
talked a
can do
little
that.
bit.
And then why don't we do a little prediction for week 1?
Ooh, all right. So I was already kind of fading the Niners week 1 anyway. So without Bosa, I mean, I'm assuming he won't play at this point or won't play much. I'm going Pittsburgh.
All right. Do you have a score for that, or?
I think it'll be like 28-23.
Okay. You know what? I think the 49ers are traditionally a slow starting team, but I think they go on the road. I think they're ready. 31-30 49ers.
Wow. A little bit higher scoring too. That's exciting. I mean, it would be poetic. I tweeted out that it would be poetic if Matthew Wright, the ex-Steelers kicker, beat the Steelers at, whatever they're calling that place, Heinz Field.
I think we'll find out by Wednesday if Jake Moody's going to play or not, because I don't think they've actually officially signed Matthew Wright yet. I think he's
right. He's on the practice squad. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll find out if they're going to activate him.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's called Acrisure now, but nobody likes that. They just keep calling it Heinz Field. It's funny.
Yeah, no, Heinz Field is what I know it as. That's what I'm going to call it. You know what I mean? It's like there's a ton of other, like I'd still call the Giants Stadium Pac-Bell Park because that's what it was when it opened. That's what I know it as.
Yeah, I didn't like Oracle because it was Oracle Arena in Oakland. It's confusing to have two Oracles in the Bay Area. Leonardo Cruz says, how's the new member of the family? Congratulations, man.
She's great. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
That's awesome.
I love her to death.
Awesome. All right, so here goes a dad joke from Silly Fungi. He says, what's the difference between ignorance and apathy? I don't know, and I don't care.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one. I'll have to remember that one.
I like it. I got a dad joke.
Yeah? All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So a little boy walks into the room and asks his father, Dad, can you tell me about solar eclipses? And the dad looks at him and goes, no, son.
The one I always tell is the mushroom walks into a bar and the bartender says, sorry, we don't serve mushrooms. The mushroom says, come on, I'm a fun guy. Especially for silly fungi. Fungi. Gotta whip that one out. Yeah, dad jokes, folks. They're usually not very funny, but they're often very punny. But usually they don't offend anybody, and that's why they're not funny, because they don't offend. Usually, to be really funny, you got to offend someone. It seems like it takes a really good joke to be funny without pissing anybody off. Well thought out. Judge Shooty in the house saying, "Here we go." Ted, how can you complain so much about Dink and Dunk and about not running a Super Bowl? Same as Dink and Dunk. If you want airy deep shots, so here's the thing. Everybody says that Kyle's system doesn't need deep threats, deep shots, and it's just not true. If you look at the Falcons in 2016, they led the league in air yards. People say, oh, we don't have Julio. I say, you don't know what Ayuk and Kittle can do with a QB who can throw deep. We also have Danny Gray, who clearly is never going to be properly utilized with Purdy. But, when you throw deep, you force a safety out of the box. That's why having a big arm QB is helpful. And when you have a QB who also has fast top speed running that forces a defender to spy, then one of the defenders left in the box is forced to spy the QB instead of covering your weapons or stopping your running backs. So everybody benefits. You basically take two defenders out of the box by having a QB that has a big arm and big legs. And so, yes, you can get by with Dink and Dunk, but it's really hard to win it all that way. And it's kind of been proven. We haven't won it all. So, yes, you can win it all with Dink and Dunk. And I'm not saying Purdy. I said Purdy was Dink and Dunk in the preseason. I'm not saying he will be in the regular season. He wasn't Dink and Dunk in 2022. I hope he's not in 2020. I don't think he will be. But I think he might be early in the season, though. I think, I don't think his arm is right yet. I think it's this. Everybody's saying that it was full velocity in camp. I didn't see that. So ultimately, yeah, you don't have to have it to win, but if you have it, you're going to win a lot more. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I get it. I think you do what the offense gives you, right? Like the offense is built on yards after catch. If you call that dink and dunk, that's what it is. But that's what this offense is built off of, getting players in space. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that he's going to be, taking deep shots the way Josh Allen's going to take deep shots, but you don't need him to. I don't consider throws like, again, using an example, the throw in the preseason to Juwan Jennings. If you're making second level throws, to me, that's not a dink and dunk. So we'll see.
There you go. Hiroski in the house saying Jake Moody needs more reps. Got to get healthy first, Hiroski. So we'll see. Tommy Huxley said that I hated the Hargrave signing. No, I love the Hargrave signing. I like anyone who can take pressure off Bosa and our D-line and our secondary by applying, more pass rush. It's exactly what we need in the middle of that defense. So I'm excited for Hargrave for sure, the Gravedigger. Leonard Cruz says just Paper Sunday ticket on YouTube 4 months free with HBO Max, but canceled NFL Plus. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I still haven't found streaming to be as user friendly as a DVR on cable, but cable is awfully expensive. I do get it. It's
YouTube TV has a DVR feature,
but when you scan through, does it show the video or does it like black out? Because the ones I've seen, like you can't see what's happening when you're fast forwarding.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Yeah. So I mean,
I don't ever record anything. So
yeah, there you go. Just watch it live if you can. Niners lost week 1. Yeah, I mean week 2020 and 2021, or in 2022. Yeah, we're slow starting team for sure. So it was a Cards week 1 in 2020. We won in 2022. Oh no, that was just the Bears. That was the Bears, the monsoon game.
Yeah.
And then Detroit 2021 we won. But like we started 2021 3-5 and 2022 3-4. Hopefully we can get a faster start this season. I mean, we didn't have McCaffrey before, so he's a huge difference maker. That's I guess the thing. That's I guess the thing for me with Purdy
is we should win. 2019 we beat Tampa Bay. 2021 we started the season with a win. So 2023. Why not?
Going to Vegas if the Niners make it. That would be a good reason to go.
Watch I'm going to try. I looked at Super Bowl tickets just like curiosity for last year, and like it was the year that it was in LA, which was last year, right?
Yeah.
No, maybe the year before.
LA was the year before when the Rams won. Last year was
right.
Where was it? It was in Arizona.
Okay, so I looked at tickets for LA just to see, and like bleeds were like $9,000 a ticket. I'm just like, yeah, bro, that's a hard ask for a spot that you're not even like. Sorry, my dog's barking. That you're not even sitting in a premium spot. Like, to me, baseball, I love watching in person. Football, I think you lose a lot when you're in person. I like it better on TV, to be honest. I'd love to just say that I did it, but that's a lot of money.
It is. It's a corporate event nowadays, the Super Bowl. If you're not sponsored by somebody to be there, either to report or have some fat cat company that's going to get a box or seats for employees or something, it's really difficult to justify. So I would never say never, but I would say not likely that you'll see me at the Super Bowl, Robbie. If Bosa signs, will either of you go live?
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it's probability. Speaking of which, I do have to get going here pretty quick.
Yeah. And I do too. I saw somebody replied and asked for an 11:30 show, so I got only 40 minutes to live.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you, Matt, for coming on. Everybody, make sure you hit Mr. Matt BSN on Twitter and
and it turned into, it was like, we got some stuff going between, with the Twitter stuff, but it kind of turned into us versus Randy Daytona up in here. But so thanks for that, Randy, bringing two people together.
That's right. Well, hey, and the Montana Elite these days, that was another good one. And Purdy Mahomes. It's always interesting stuff. Thanks everybody for joining. And I'll just say peace and go Niners.
Go Niners.